we're here for yet again another completely unjustified and criminal use of force primarily against a black woman. We saw her get thrown down without cause and get threatened to be punched in the face. And we know the Sheriff's Department isn't joking about punching women to the face. Where on earth is it acceptable to punch a woman on the face? We're in America, and folks punching women on the face should be criminal, and they should be arrested on the spot. So we are calling for Sheriff's Deputy Trevor Kirk to be prosecuted by DA Gascon immediately for the felony battery of Miss J.C. Houston that occurred on June 24th of this year. There's absolutely no excuse. There was no lawful arrest. We also want that person at Winco who sought to weaponize the LA Sheriff's Department and sent them for an arrest and a robbery, saying that there was a robbery when they knew in fact there was no robbery. There was not even a shoplifting. My client to the right paid for his cake that he ate, and when he was being escorted out, he had nothing in his hands. He had a cake that he'd eaten, and he'd gone back inside to see what Miss Houston was doing, and she was being battered by the security guard. And to that union mouthpiece, Attorney Thomas Yu, careful, sir, you might find yourself in the lawsuit for defamation, because to say this is justified is nothing but defamation on my client. We will not accept you trampling on her reputation. She's a law-abiding citizen. She was in there shopping, and she was bumped and battered by the security guard. And you see on the tape that he moves, he puts his right foot in her way as if to trip her before she can move, and yes, she got in his face. She got in his face and took her mask down and exchanged words. Now, if someone's a little heated up and they get to talking fast, he might splatter. We're not going to get into splitting hairs about what occurred between him and her in the store, but it was no robbery, and the battery was by the security guard on her first. We want him arrested for battery. We want him arrested for 148.3 of the California Penal Code, which is reporting an emergency and intending for that emergency call to cause the police to come with guns blaring almost. So we'll take a few brief questions if my clients want to speak. You can understand they've been mentally traumatized by this incident, and in fact, Miss J.C. suffered a fracture to her arm. You were provided pictures of her black eye, and she's, it took all of her strength to get here today, to show her face and to stand and say, we are not going to take this anymore. Period. We are not going to take it anymore. Stop beating us up and having it put on camera, and do something about it, Sheriff Luna. We voted you in to do something about it because we know Villanueva said there was no problem at the Sheriff's Department. We knew that's a lie. So any questions?
Yeah, the video that was released inside of the store showing the woman apparently spitting on the security guard, bumping into him. What do you make of it?
What do I make of it, Leo? I've seen you here a number of times, and for you to say showing apparently, that's what you're saying is that you're taking the word of whatever employee that was, because if from the video I looked at, unless you were presently there and you could see projectiles coming from her mouth, you can't say what she's doing. But that is to distract from the felony battery that occurred in this parking lot. That is a distraction. And let me tell you this. The sheriff's deputy who beat up my client cannot be saved by subsequently learned things that occurred in the store. To say this is why we responded in this way because she allegedly spit on someone, he didn't see the video prior to. His mouthpiece got a copy of the video and put that out. So to say that, hey, that's why he did it, you don't get to punish him. You don't get to punish her, Deputy Kirk. That's for a judge and a jury to do if she did something. You don't get to kick her ass in the parking lot because she allegedly did something in the store, which she did not do. And if she did, it must be proven by a judge and a jury.
How should the deputies have responded?
They should have found a reporting party, ascertained what occurred in the store. If there was a crime, then make an arrest. You don't, because any given person out in the parking lot could have fit that description. If the description goes out, black male or black woman in the parking lot in the Winco, I dare say that there are dozens of people that fit that description. So you first have to determine if there's a crime. Here, there was no crime. So arresting people for no crime is not legal.
Is there a receipt for the case?
The sheriffs took the receipt. Yes, and the answer is yes to that. There was also a purchase of about $60 or $70 worth of other items that after they were roughed up and disrespected, they returned those items. They didn't want to still patronize the business. So they returned the items, and that's when that security guard got pissed off and he started blocking her way and getting in her way and obstructing her movement. So then there's that.
Are you going to demand that the sheriff's department return the receipt that you say they took?
Well, in the process of litigation, which I see litigation coming imminently, there is an exchange of documents. So if they do have that document and they haven't destroyed it, we will be asking for a copy of it back. So my clients didn't steal anything. They shouldn't have been arrested. Furthermore, all of you should be concerned with the attempt to stop what everyone's First Amendment right is, and that's the right to stand up and point a camera and aim it and say, you know what, I'm going to put the police in check. I'm going to make sure they don't beat this black man up like we've seen them do. That is what she was doing. She was making sure, with the only weapon she had, and that was her camera, she was making sure that they didn't kill him right in front of her. And what did they do? They got her and threw her down and said, you know what, your rights are not going to be respected today. That's what that deputy said. He abridged her First Amendment right to stand there and film and to speak out, don't do this, or I'm watching you, I'm putting you on YouTube Live, is what you hear her say. I'm putting you on YouTube, or words to that effect. Now, don't we want that to happen? Where would George Floyd's family be without the recording? And there's a picture of that young, brave woman standing there. She's standing there with her camera. What if they had gotten up and thrown her down for filming it? We never would have known he was tortured for over 9 minutes, and no one would have ever believed the family or the witnesses that stood by.
And to the lawyers for the deputies who claim that she was not an innocent victim standing there filming this. She was actually a suspect. That's why they had to detain her. What do you say to that?
So there's something at the police, right? So the Thomas Yu, I don't know his credentials. I don't know who he is, but I know he's not a use of force expert. Prior to becoming a lawyer, I spent a number of years as a police officer myself. I was even a decorated officer, graduating from the academy, #1 in weaponless defense. And there is no time where you walk up to someone peacefully standing there holding a camera and decide to throw them to the ground, okay? There's something called asking questions. Hey, can I have your name, ma'am? We got a call of a reported shoplifting. There's a certain thing called respect, and we heard Sheriff Luna say he wants his deputies to respect the folks they come in contact with. Miss Houston was not being combative when she was standing there. Miss Houston was merely standing there making sure they didn't kill Mr. Barnes. And there's also something that says, may I have your ID because you fit the description of a suspect. Black folks aren't given any of those preliminary steps before saying, you know what, I'm gonna punch you. Let me throw you down, I'm gonna punch you. Where do they teach that at? You can't teach a deputy to be human. They have to come with that already, and once you see they're not human, you need to fire them, period.
Are you satisfied with the Justice Department being involved in investigating the Sheriff's Department on the heels of this incident?
So yes, we'd like additional eyes on it, but we don't feel that that takes that out of the realm of being DA Gascon's responsibility as well. We want his eyes on it. In fact, several California Penal Code sections were violated, and you know, he represents the state, the city and county, so we'd like the county to take action. Lancaster, you know, is under that purview. So yes, I am satisfied, but I want more. You can't tell me, Leo, that if that was a black officer that looked like you, Leo, and you punched a white woman that looks like this camera woman, that you wouldn't be fired immediately. And if you threw her down for filming her white counterpart or her white friend, and the deputy threw him down like this happened, you'd be in trouble. And they would be at the sheriff's department protesting until you were fired. You would be relieved of duty immediately. But did you notice how brazen he was? Did you notice that he did that without a second thought? That makes you think that they do it all the time.
Yeah,
He didn't even think
do.
twice.
I'm a victim.
He walked up and said, after he threw her down, he said, "You better stop fighting," which she wasn't. She was just laying there being hurt. He said, "I'm gonna punch you," and he elevated his fist to punch, and you hear the black woman say, "You better not punch her. You better not." I don't know if there's gonna be change until our white brothers and sisters start yelling out, "You better not punch them. You better stop doing what you're doing." We need our counterparts in the white community, the Latina community, the Asian community to join with us and say, "You know what? Knock it off. We're not going to take you doing this to our black brothers and sisters anymore. This is a civilized country. We're not in a third world country. What is going on?"
So when do you plan to file this lawsuit? And what damages are you looking for in this lawsuit, monetarily and in other areas?
I'd say the lawsuit is virtually writing itself right as we speak.
This idea, of black folks having to comply and complain later, why is that a thing that is expected of black shoppers, black motorists, black residents, black pedestrians, black cyclists, just black folks in general?
Bird watchers.
It's going to take a lot of undoing. In the 60s, there was a nonviolent movement, and we have unfortunate pictures that show dogs grabbing the shirts of black men, and the peaceful black man standing there and just getting bitten. And, that was in the 60s. I just saw last week dog grabbing a black man as he has his hands in the air and complying with orders. Yes, that was in another state. But until folks are not desensitized to black pain on TV, I don't see how there's going to be a change. It seems like folks are accepting of that. And, if you don't want to be killed, it's almost like go along to get along. I tell clients, survive the contact with police and complain later because we want them to live, James. That's why.
Right.
So the short answer is you got to live through the incident. You can't fight at the scene. I don't even suggest that they say, "I'm going to sue you" at the scene. I don't suggest you say one single thing. The only thing is, I'd like a lawyer, and I'd like not to give you a statement at this time. And survive, because we've seen they will kill you, unfortunately.
Do you know anything about the officer's background?
Not at this time, but we're doing the research on that.
What did we hear from her?
If she would like to speak, she can speak now, but you can understand she's been very traumatized. Miss Houston, would you
Maybe you can
like
talk
to
to us
say
about how
one thing?
traumatizing that experience was for you, and if you're having nightmares, and are you terrified when you see any patrol vehicle half a mile away from you, and you step up to the mic and provide that for us? Thank you.
Yes, I experienced all the above. The day of the incident, I thought that I was going to be killed. He tried to kill me. And for what? Because I was taking a picture or taking a video of possibly some misconduct on an African American male.
Can you tell us what the security folks inside of the store said to you?
They said nothing at first. They said nothing. I was just being body bumped all around.
And that obviously was frustrating.
So, body bumped for no reason, would anyone be frustrated? If a security guard bumped you for no reason, I would be upset, and I would return the materials I purchased from the store, which is what my client did.
What responsibility does Winco have in this?
Okay, and you've been doing good, James Farr. You're dominating the interview. Winco will be listed because their employees weaponize the sheriff's department with their false complaint of a robbery. A robbery is the taking of something with the use of force or fear. Okay? You can't, even sneaking, even pickpocketing is not robbery. Robbery, the person knows they're being robbed. Give me your stuff or die. For them to say this was a robbery was the weaponization of the sheriff's department, but by make no means, no bones about it, the sheriff's department are still liable, because if it were so easy to hurt somebody with false reports, then we'd see ex-wives doing it to ex-husbands all the time and saying, I'm getting ready to send the police over there to kill him.
Well, actually, the radio call came in to deputies, attempted robbery in progress, threats made.
Yes, and when I responded to those calls, do you think I showed up and just threw people down that was filming us in the parking lot? No, I didn't do it. I wouldn't have gotten away with it, and this sheriff's deputy shouldn't get away with it either. You have to be able to discern what was happening, find who the RP, who's the reporting party, who's the person, because the layperson, I'm sorry, honey, the layperson does not know the difference between a robbery and a petty theft. They are not charged with knowing the penal code section, but the police are. So the layperson can say robbery, but many times you get to a scenario where that's not the case. Somebody might say, oh, somebody robbed my house. Well, you can't rob a house unless someone's personally there to be a victim of the robbery. Burglary, it's a burglary of a house. So the deputies come, find out what if any crimes have been committed, and then you go, and if someone's trying to get away, then you should try and use reasonable force to detain them. Officers are allowed to use reasonable force to detain. No one was trying to get away. In fact, if he was, Mr. Barnes and Miss Houston were already out of the store. They stayed because they wanted to complain about the bad treatment they had. They stayed. Even when the sheriff was there, Miss Houston did not leave. She stayed. So when you have someone compliant with their presence and you could interview them, you don't need to come up and yank their neck down and throw them to the ground and treat them like a dog. You don't do that, and it's not acceptable.
So you're trying to say that if these so-called suspects were white, this whole scenario would have been completely different?
We know it wouldn't have happened.
It
would have been.
So
It would have slammed it.
So I'm not trying to say it. I've made it clear, and I know you arrived late. Let me go ahead and say it plainly again.
Not that late.
If they were white, if these two folks to my left and right were white, and you, Leo, as a black man and officer, threw them down, you would be out of a job right now. Undoubtedly. And likely in jail. So I've said that clear. I could say it again just so that let me look into the camera and tell you, it doesn't happen to white folks like this, and we're not going to have it happen to black folks like this.
Right. Yeah.
Any more questions? And we're going to take off. Thank you so much, folks.